Hey guys, welcome to a weekly question video. In these question videos, I answer questions that I've received either in my comments section here on YouTube, over on Instagram, or just things that I see being talked about in domestic discipline groups online, our Discord server. I kind of pull from what are things that are being asked, and I give my opinion and perspective on them. If you like these videos, please like this video, leave me a comment, let me know what you think down below, let me know if you agree with me or disagree with me, and subscribe if you're not already. All those things really do help out the channel. And if you want to help support us being able to continue what we do here, a link to our Patreon is down below. That's the best place to support us while also getting bonus content and access to the Discord server that I just mentioned. So definitely check it out if you're interested. So in this video, I want to answer the question, how does domestic discipline improve communication? This is going to be very specific to my own relationship, but I also see this parallel the relationships of others that I've been able to kind of be witness to, where I see this pattern of growth in communication as discipline is incorporated into the relationship, and it just seems to kind of parallel the facilitation of deeper communication. So for Coda and I, we have always had a relationship where we enjoyed being around each other. I hope so. I hope that most couples enjoy being around each other, enjoy spending time together. That was definitely something that we always enjoyed and we always looked forward to. And we had what I thought was pretty good communication. But as we've gone through domestic discipline, we have seen our communication develop deeper and deeper, and I can't deny the correlation between incorporating domestic discipline and having discipline in our relationship and having that deeper level of communication. But why does that happen? I think that part of that is that incorporating domestic discipline, setting up domestic discipline, it requires a lot of ongoing conversations. It requires, coming together and talking through what the rules are and what the expectations are and what is a reasonable expectation and what consequences are you willing to incorporate, and all of those things. It requires a level of honesty and a level of introspection that most couples don't have very many opportunities to experience. Because as a taken in hand, I have to have a level of introspection to be able to say that I am willing to experience these consequences that I know are not going to feel good. They're not going to be fun. They are going to be very much a deterrent for my behavior, but I'm willing to experience them because I see the benefit of having the consequence and having the discipline. And I see the benefit of growing towards our goals and being able to communicate what are our goals? What do we want from our relationship? What do we want from ourselves? What do we want from our partner? As a taken in hand, I do have expectations of my head of household. There are certain things that I want from him, and I need to be able to communicate that. And again, these are just conversations that many couples don't think to have outside of the process of incorporating domestic discipline into their relationship. Once you incorporate all that, once you've kind of talked about through those things, most couples that are using domestic discipline will continue to have ongoing conversations. Coda and I have some of those bigger conversations of what are our goals? What do we want from ourselves? What do we want from our relationship? And what do we want from each other? We have those bigger conversations typically during our boot camps. So it is kind of still an ongoing kind of check-in to make sure that we are still meeting the goals and expectations that we want to be meeting. But even beyond that, the daily communication of, him checking in, me self-reporting, the daily communication of being able to, in the moment, assess and give, being able to think through, what do I need? What do I need from my head of household right now? And then being able to go to them and communicate that. Sometimes what I need is more direct and clear communication, and I can go and I can ask for that. And sometimes what I need is I need to have a correction because I feel really dysregulated, and I can go and ask for that. And so knowing that I can communicate what I need and that those needs are going to be filled to the best of my head of household's ability and also in accordance to what they feel is best for me. Knowing that that's going to happen helps me communicate more freely. Um, I feel like on Coda's side, and I don't want to speak for him, but I feel like it's good to kind of speak to the head of household experience a little bit, is he feels like he can communicate what he wants to see from our relationship, that he has a voice to set goals and to set vision in our relationship. And I know that he feels value in that. And that was something that he did not have before we started this process. He did not feel like it was right for him to impose vision and leadership into our relationship when we were not practicing domestic discipline, because we hadn't really talked about how we viewed our roles as husband and wife and how we viewed how we were going to approach our relationship, and where the division of labor and the division of decision making really was. It wasn't until we started domestic discipline that we had those conversations and we were able to kind of set standards. And once we set the standard of where that division lied for us, he felt empowered to then start to create vision and to lead our relationship in a tangible way. And so that is something that has improved for him. Now, even beyond that, the way I communicated in the past, I was never a nagger. I was never somebody that was just going to like nag at and grate on Coda. And he appreciated that. But what I was doing was equally disruptive to the benefits of our relationship. And I was very passive aggressive in how I communicated and what I would do. And that is equally disruptive to the success and flow of your relationship. And it's equally detrimental to the communication within your relationship. And so I wouldn't nag him, but I would get to the point where I would just want to take over and do things myself. I would not give him space to fulfill what he said he was going to fulfill, or to do what he said he was going to do. Or I was imposing expectations on him that I never communicated, to where I was like, well, this needs to happen and he should be the one to do it. But I was never going to him and expressing the need or asking if he would facilitate meeting that need. And so, for instance, this is the one that kind of comes up in my mind, because obviously before domestic discipline, I'm not going to him and expressing that I need correction for being dysregulated, but I would have the expectation that he would take out the garbage. That's something that he kind of has always done. And when we were right before we started domestic discipline, we were living in a small town, and I just remember we were living in this teeny tiny house, and the kitchen in particular was really small. And so any amount of clutter that happened was really, really noticeable very quickly. And he has always kind of taken out the garbage in our relationship. That's just something that he's always taken upon himself. And so I had this expectation that he would do it. And I just remember like the garbage can Jenga of trying to just stack everything to where, it was very obviously overflowing. And then I would get frustrated that he didn't notice, instead of just asking him to do it, or asking if I could do it. I mean, at that point, I didn't need permission to go out in the alley, but I could have just done it myself. There were so many things I could have done, but just the passive aggressive, like allowing the garbage to pile up, that was so detrimental to the communication, the connection in our relationship, and also it was disrespectful. And I think that that is one of the things that having domestic discipline, having tangible and real consequences to being disrespectful, has made it to where I don't communicate with disrespect very often, because I know the consequences for doing so. And before we started domestic discipline, there was obviously no consequence to being disrespectful. And so I was passive aggressively disrespectful quite a bit. And I think that having an expectation of respect is one of the best things that you can do within your relationship, because it sets up everything else to be successful. And being under domestic discipline, not only am I learning how to communicate with respect, I'm learning how to speak respectfully in a way that honors Coda's authority, in a way that is very honest and heartfelt and productive to the communication. Coda's also learning that he can require that he doesn't have to put up with this disrespect from me, and that he can and should impose consequences when I'm disrespectful. And so that is something that he has embraced. Now, I will say that respect really is a two-way street. Now, I have a duty to respect my head of household because it is an expectation, but Coda is also very respectful and kind in the way he communicates to me. And so there is this expectation that I have of my head of household that he is going to lead by example. So he can't exactly expect me to be completely respectful to him if he is being degrading towards me. Now, his behavior does not negate my own. If he was being degrading towards me, I would not have a desire to respect him, but I still have the duty to respect him, even though he's not doing what he's supposed to do. However, I think that in good domestic discipline relationships, in domestic discipline relationships that see long-term success and growth, you do see a head of household that understands their responsibility to lead by example, and that will speak to and address their taken in hand with a level of measured respect. So that is kind of where I'm going to end this, because I think that it really does kind of show how communication does affect the relationship between a taken in hand and a head of household, how domestic discipline and having consequences, having discipline in your relationship, how that really just drives you towards being more productive in communication, having conversations that you would not typically have otherwise, and having expectations of how you speak to each other, how communication happens, how you communicate concepts, ideas, things like that. Because being in domestic discipline does not mean that I do not have anything that I need to express or communicate to my head of household. It just means that there's a standard of how that happens. And when I need to communicate something, even when it's something hard, I can choose to do that in a productive way. And having the consequences there to back up that expectation has driven me towards having success in that area. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Again, like this video if you liked it. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think down below, and we will talk to you next time.